No, not the new feed, not yet. Refresh the page. There we go. Okay. Shanae, peace and freedom. This is Queen Mother Imaku. Today is Transformation Tag Team Tuesday. We're here in a new setting, and the name of the studio is Warehouse 24 Studios, and we're so very grateful that the Transformation Tag Team has been asked to come and do our programming from here. See how it goes. So this way, it's a continuous. And let me just take a few minutes to share. Okay, let's see. I'm going to send this to. We're live, and it is a wonderful, wonderful day outside, and I hope that you are feeling invigorated and inspired. I'm going to continue to share. And then also, let's do this. And let's bring some friends into this. Let's see. It's always good to try something new. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to be here. And hopefully you are having a wonderful, excellent day. I know that I am enjoying this opportunity. Please spread the word that I am on the air. Okay. Okay. Wonderful, excellent day. I know that I am. All right. And just one more. Okay. I always say that the wonders of technology are really just profound. And so here we go. Let's see. All right. Okay. All right. And so, Transformation Tag Team been doing now since September. I had the idea of stringing together a group of motivational speakers and bringing you Motivational Tuesday mornings so that you become inspired, and also so that you're able to get accustomed to who we are, and also bring us live to your city. Now, you know what? I'm going to do this also. I'm going to go live. Okay. And today's topic that I'm bringing you is reclaiming your innocence. And there is a Kemetic word for innocence, which is wab. Wabetit. Okay. Live. There we go. Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's so good to see you. Thank you for being here this morning. This is Transformation Tag Team Tuesday. I am Queen Mother Imaku, and we're in a different setting. We are at Studio 24 here in the city of Orange, and Orange happens to be where I teach. And so it's funny how everything comes full circle. We're very grateful that Vanessa JC has invited us to come and be a part of her enterprise here. It's always good to meet women who are entrepreneurs and who are doing it for themselves. I know that myself as a multimedia producer, I know what it's like to do all of the work yourself, to make things happen yourself, because that's just the way that things go. And especially if you want to see things happen. And so thank you so much for allowing us to be here. Today we have a different order because of the fact that we are in this location, and the idea is that all of the Jersey folks who are on this side of Jersey, we will be together in this space and sitting down one after the other, so it's a continuous stream. And so coming up ideally at 8:30 will be Elegance Champagne with his topic, the elemental structures of relationships and your success. Also, we'll be having Reverend Gail Campbell at her regular 9 o'clock spot, Trusting Your Dopeness. And then we have at, let's say it brings us to 9:30, the Sparkling Takiyah Diamond with Who Messed Your Head Up. And then we have at 10 o'clock, Dr. Herbert Harris with his 7 Causes of Failure. 7 Causes of Failure. And then we have Skeeter Stewartson, The Words That I Speak Are Spirit and Life. And then finally, Rashim Kilo Pugh, Support is Water. Sit back, enjoy yourself, get ready to be inspired, get ready to be educated. You know, I think it's a wise thing to have a notebook and a pen handy so that way you can take notes from us as we bring you the wise words that will help you to move forward in your life. And so, moving into my topic. And let me just move a few layers here. You know, the thing about winter, moving into spring, is that the weather is always unpredictable. So I tend to wear layers so I can either layer up or down, you know. All right. So my topic is reclaiming your innocence. Now, I'll tell you, I have been doing a lot of soul searching this week about the topic of innocence and how we have stepped away from that innocent part of ourselves. I recently did a show where I talked about spring and the vernal equinox and the changes that come along with it. But the main thing is that for us, in my tradition, it's a way of taking time to inspect who you are, the changes that you need to make, and getting back in touch with the soul. The soul carries your pure innocence, the purity of your character that we often lose touch with. And I teach children, and it's a wonderful thing to spend time with children to help you to remind you of your own innocence. But also it is an amazing way of being able to see exactly what is happening with our society and seeing how children become affected by society. So now, I recently taught my class, began teaching my class, a song that's called This Is Me. And it's from the movie The Greatest Showman, which is about P.T. Barnum. And it's amazing how they've glorified this story of P.T. Barnum because he was something of a huckster, and he did take advantage of people who were differently abled, but also he gave people who were differently abled a chance to be able to be themselves and get paid well for it. For instance, there was someone who's called Tom Thumb. His name doesn't come to me right off the top of my head. He was only about so big, but his show name was Tom Thumb. And he became a millionaire. He built a mansion. He got married. You know, I mean, he ended up having a really, really good life because of his differences. And so anyway, so I began teaching this song, This Is Me, from the musical about P.T. Barnum and his sideshow attractions. If you don't know about it, you can Google it. Just look it up, okay? It's really fascinating. P.T. Barnum is who was integral in starting the circus as we know it today. So I shared the video to This Is Me, which is really wildly popular on. And so the reactions were interesting. Now, I teach 1st through 5th grade, and I shared the video with my 3rd graders and my 4th graders and 5th graders. The 3rd class, when they saw this video, this really infectious song about being yourself and owning who you are and no longer being ashamed, they were fascinated by it. And, you know, I explained how back in the day, if you were born differently abled, then families would shun you. They would push you into the basement or keep you locked in your room or even send you away to an asylum. This was back in the, up until the 1800s, and even the early 1900s, this kind of thing was done. And so in the story, Barnum goes around the country and he collects all these different people and says, I'm going to give you an opportunity to shine and no longer be ashamed. And that's what this song is about. So you see the bearded lady depicted, you see a man who was born with an extra leg, someone who was an albino, all these people who were considered quote unquote freaks at the time and how they're claiming themselves. So the 3rd graders were really fascinated. The 4th graders were actually repulsed. Some began crying. One said, "Stop, I don't want to see anymore." And it's interesting because of the fact that this was place, the 4th grade. This is the age where being jaded really starts to set in and shape the character. But enough of the innocence is still there in order to have them overcome any of that jadedness. And they actually began to feel some compassion for these people and did some research on their own and came back and told me what they had learned just from Googling about Barnum's quote-unquote freak show, which was a very unkind term we know now. But you know, the thing that's really the most intriguing about this is that if you have children who are, say, 4, 5 years old, they aren't naturally repulsed. Children want to find playmates and usually want to be helpful. At what point is it that we become jaded? At what point is it that we begin to lose touch with our innocence? And generally something happens in our own childhood that brings us to a place of becoming jaded, of feeling as though we're no longer safe in our bodies, and where we begin to do what the body naturally does and the mind naturally does, this process of overcompensating. For instance, it's not uncommon for children who grow up with not enough food to then become obsessed with food because it was what they were denied. I know my father grew up on the family farm. The Lloyd Road is full of acres and acres, hundreds of acres of our family property. And each family, of course, had their own area that they farmed. My father had been abandoned by his own mother and father and was raised by his grandparents. And it was very common then for the grown-ups in the house to lock up the food. If it was an ice box, if it was a cabinet, they would put locks on it so that the children would not be able to get in and just randomly eat the food when they were hungry. So my father experienced hunger, which was ironic because he grew up with all of this food that they were growing, all these crops that they were growing. But he was denied, he and his other cousins who had been abandoned by their parents, they were denied the privilege of eating what they needed and when they needed it. Now, this is not to say that children should just be able to just go and randomly get food whenever they want, because a lot of times children don't have that filter, and don't know when to stop. But the symbolism of having a lock on your cabinets, on your ice box, saying not for you, and then only to have small portions meted out to you, it's devastating to a child, and it causes some real psychological damage. And so with my father, according to what my cousin Tiny had told me after he died, and she told me this story, my father would get up from the table and just go and walk up and down the roads for miles and miles. And when he would come back, he would never, ever experience hunger again. He said, the first chance I leave from here, I am gone. And so afterwards, in his adult life, my father developed this really unique relationship with food. He loved buffets and was always making sure that he had enough. And he had a slight build, but he became quite stout. Later when he got diabetes, because he was eating too much of the wrong thing, then he trimmed down. But still, he became obsessed with having enough food because of the denial. It's the same thing when children are deprived of love. And then as they grow up, they're looking for love in all the wrong places, simply because it was a void that was not filled. How many of you have found yourself in a place where you found that you are not in touch with your innocence, where you are feeling somewhat corrupted because of what happened to you growing up, or even in your young adult life? So, I want us to take a look at exactly what it's like when you're raising a healthy child, and see if any of this speaks to you. If you're raising children, this is really significant, because there's a tendency to make the same mistakes over again. We might make something better, but we pattern ourselves after what we know. And if what you know is abuse, but you don't really see it as abuse, then you tend to replicate it. And each generation wants to do better, but it may be that you've supplied a nicer home to your child, but if you've got the same behavior going on inside of it, then it's not really making things that much better, because you're setting another generation up for all of the negative characteristics that you grew up with. So, what is it that a child needs, and what is it that you feel that you've needed and maybe did not get growing up? The reason that you lost touch with innocence. Well, a child, first of all, needs love. It's important to feel as though you matter in this world, and for you to feel that the people who brought you into this world have your back no matter what. Just feeling absolute love. Second, positive self-esteem. Do you feel that you were reinforced with good messages and that you were told that you were somebody? 3, a child needs guidance and morals and ethics, positive guidance. So this way a child knows what is acceptable in society and what is not acceptable. Otherwise, you create a child that runs amok or is destructive or feels out of place because of the fact that the values that are reinforced in that child's household don't reflect truly what should be going on in society. 4, children need nurturing. So it's really not natural for a child to have to fend for him or herself. Being nurtured, it takes on so many different roles. It's not just being fed, but it is about developing the talents and the abilities of the child. If the child is not nurtured and is left to fend for him or herself, That leads to situations where we see children who are stealing. Okay, they'll go into a store and take some honey buns or something like that simply because they're hungry. Deprivation, again, it leads to overcompensation so that the body is able to take care of itself and protect itself. Safety. If you bring a child into an environment where there's a lot of violence in the home or even in the neighborhood, then the child becomes defensive on a lot of different levels. With the children that I teach, I'm usually able to tell when there's something wrong in the household just from looking at the child and seeing how they engage with other children or how they don't engage with other children. Usually there is something that's not right. Joy. Children should naturally feel happy, and there should be joy in the home. If you are experiencing as a parent any kind of disappointment, depression, that does not mean that you let your child wallow in it along with you. You've got to find some place within yourself to rise above it because you are the parent, you're the guardian. And I remember when I found out that my children had been abused by their father, my first husband. And there were days where I really did not want to get out of bed. But I made myself get out of bed because I wanted my children to see that I was there for them, to know that I was there for them, and that whatever I was feeling about what happened to them was more important than their well-being, you see. So there's a way you've got to rise up and overcome it. Maybe your parents weren't there for you. Maybe all you saw was depression in your home. Maybe you saw that maybe your mother was maybe involved in something that she should have been involved in, and she kind of gave up the battle. Sometimes people feel as though they haven't achieved as much as they should have in life, and therefore they give up. But you now have the opportunity to correct that. That's your choice. And to find somebody who will help you to overcome so that you don't end up repeating the cycle. What else do children need? Children need clean, healthy, organized homes. Maybe you were used to growing up in chaos. Now, some people will overcompensate and become somewhat OCD, all right, where everything has to be in its place. I was like that for a while. I found that my OCD tendencies, and I actually was diagnosed with OCD back in the 90s, and I had to work on that. But that the OCD was really more connected to the lack of control I felt I had in my life. And at least if I could control what was in my environment, then it made me feel a certain level of safety. And I didn't feel that the world was quite so monstrous because at least I could control where this sat in my house and I could move this, but it would become a thing of making sure that this was just exactly the right way, and I couldn't leave the house unless everything was in its place. That's like a prison in itself. I really had to do a lot of work on myself to get out of that. Otherwise, I'd be stuck in the house. It would make me sometimes, okay? But giving children chore charts is a good thing, and also helps them to understand that they have a responsibility in the household as well. When you have a nice, clean, organized house, free of clutter, and I'm not saying it has to be OCD perfect. It should be comfortable, but by the same token, it should be clean. It creates better mental health and creates a greater sense of well-being and structure. You ever try to sit in an environment that was completely cluttered and try to get work done? It's not easy. So imagine what it's like for your child. So you want to try to create a clean, healthy, and organized home. Organized also meaning everybody knowing what their responsibilities are in the home. In the I Ching, there is a gua that is called, which one is that is, it is the one for the family, 37. 37th Gua talks about the family functioning in a healthy way when everybody knows what their roles are. So this person takes out the garbage, this person does the dishes, this person washes clothes, this person dusts. You know, now I'm talking in terms of a big family, but even so in a household with a husband and wife, my husband and I, we have certain duties that we share, okay? So it's clear when you know, okay, this person's strengths are this, and so this person's going to do this, all right? This person's going to do this. So, again, organized home. Willingness to learn and explore should be encouraged. If children are taught to be afraid of the world and to just stay in their own little box, in their own little neighborhood, in their own little town, then you're going to create a very closed-minded child. I've met people who have never been to New York, and I mean, I live in Newark. There are people who've never been to New York. There are people who've never left their ward, all right? We have the East, Central, North, and West wards. There are people who've never left their wards. And if you talk long enough to them, you'll find that their thinking is very boxed in as well. Encouraging your child and also yourself to explore what is out there helps to broaden their mind, and it gives them courage. Otherwise, you create someone who is fearful. Just a couple more because we only have 4 minutes left in my segment. So then, let's see, we also have sharing. Yeah, I shared a few weeks ago how my students will naturally share with one another. I think it's so beautiful. And they really don't always understand if somebody in the class has not earned their treat from me, and they just want to see their friends feel good, so they'll all share what they have simply because they think of themselves as a collective, you know. In my Drums of Compassion class, the focus is on community and learning how to work together, learning how to feel heart to heart. It is making good music, of course, but also it is about caring. If there's a child who doesn't know how to hold the drum, and if we have a new student that comes in, then other children are eager to help them, and not from any kind of a place of showing off, elitism. It's simply because they care and they want their friends to succeed. When you have people who are truly pure of intention, and they want their friends to succeed, you should want your friends to succeed along with you, okay? The idea that everybody comes up, you know, we can all eat, you know? So leading into giving the child the understanding that the world is not about you, but it is about what you bring to the world in order for the world to function in wholeness. So when you have children who are given too much, who are made to think that it's always about them, they turn into very selfish individuals, and then they start using people, and they see people as a tool, and it always becomes about it being their way, according to their timetable, according to their definition of what is right in the world, and what is right in the world to them is whatever they want. As a citizen on this planet, it can't be about whatever you want. It's got to be about for whatever's for the greater good. And last, I want to leave you with this, because it's 8:29 and it's time for Elegance Champagne to come on. Praise. Do you give your child enough praise? Were you given enough praise? Do you find yourself overcompensating by being a people pleaser simply because you were missing that praise in your life? People validating you, telling you that you're wonderful, telling you that was a good job. When I taught for kids in lockdown, I taught an African arts program, and I specialize in outsider art, you know, from the visual arts program that I did. And they relaxed all the rules for me, which was really wonderful. And one of the things that I would do, just naturally as a teacher, would be to put my hand on the shoulder of the young man that I was teaching and just say, good job. Because in in their set of rules, no touching was allowed, which is really detrimental. We're talking about the ages of 11 through 21 who were in these group homes. They were juvenile detention homes. And later I went on to teach in the juvenile detention jail that was in the juvie courthouse, and did my art program there. They relaxed all the rules for me because they realized that this art program was more than just filling time. It was art therapy. And the kids were being nurtured. At first I taught young men, and then it was the men and the young men and the young girls, and then it became the girls. But they all craved praise. They craved validation, you know, and to have somebody just put their hand on their shoulder and say, good job. They allowed the kids to hug me. I was allowed to hug them because they were in these sterile environments where they weren't getting that. In fact, you find that many of the people who are drawn to the jobs of being guardians in these homes are generally bullies, abusers, and our children are in peril. And so to bring that innocence in, to allow children to know that it's okay, like in my Drums of Compassion class, when my kids come through the door, they know it's a safe space, and it's okay for them to be kids. And you know, we'll be silly. We talk about serious things, but we get to be silly, and we share treats, we share stories, we talk about life, real life. But we also make sure to tap back into that innocence. Where is your innocence? Review everything that I've shared. Meditate on these things and how all of this has affected your life. Perhaps you're one of the rare people who has gone through life unscathed. I hope so. And if so, then please make it your business to share the goodness that you have in your heart. I tend to seek out friends who still have that innocence, who are just genuinely good people, because otherwise you're dealing with people who are trying to hurt you. Are you one of those people? Which side are you on? All right. And so listen, visit my website at Shenu Art Yoga Sanctuary if you want to find out more information about how you can tap back into your own innocence, because that is truly my goal in helping people on the planet, working with children, working with women, working with families, and reminding you that you are worth saving. You are worth whatever you have to share, and because you are here, you are needed on the planet. Remember that. All right. And so now we're going to bring on Elegance Champagne. Elegance, are you ready? He's not ready. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to keep talking then until... But how much time do you need? I'm just going to... Right. Okay, so I've got a little more time here. 10 minutes? Okay. Let's see. I'm going to come up live on my page. Excuse me? Yes, thank you. Oh, Sister Gail, it's so good to see you. Beautiful as usual. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. 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 Absolutely. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still live.
Oh, come on. Why are you still getting ready for that? You want to have my
Come on over, yeah. Let me go live. And we have Reverend Gail Campbell here, who entered the studio and was listening, was just sharing. Oh, look how stunning you look. Oh, you look beautiful in the shadows. All right. You know, it's so funny. I'm looking at myself on this, and it's been a minute. And let me just remind everybody, the camera adds 15 pounds, okay? I was like, I know I look like that. Okay, so let me say that Reverend Gail was sharing that she really appreciated the message, and I thank you for that. But you were sharing some valid points. Why don't you?
Yeah, it was so powerful to me because I was listening. It was tying into what I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But the parts that really got to me was when the Queen Mother said that when you don't receive enough praise when you're a child, how it affects your self-esteem. It causes you to overcompensate as an adult, to doubt the things, doubt all of your gifts, doubt all of your abilities. And that's exactly what I was talking about, because that's where I came from. Where having to, build my own self-esteem because it wasn't instilled in me. I don't think it was mother's intent to do so. She was too busy keeping a roof over our head. But it really did resonate with me, what you were saying.
What was that journey like for you? Because the process of reclaiming, rediscovery is always about the journey. So what was your journey like?
My journey was first, I would say, in my 30s. I'm 43, y'all.
Really?
I'm 43.
Oh, wow.
In my 30s, starting to admit, recognize, and that, I had self-esteem issues. Who wants to say that they have self-esteem issues?
Right.
And especially, people don't know that you can be in entertainment, you can be on the stage singing, and still have serious self-esteem issues. That's why so often those of us who are in entertainment, in the music business, have to stand up before people, oftentimes we take on another persona.
That's so true.
Because we don't feel worthy as ourselves to stand up and do these things.
Sasha Fierce.
There you go. There you go.
Patti LaBelle has another, what does she call her other, she has a name for her other persona.
Yeah. And I recognized that in me. I recognized I didn't want to be a prisoner to that. That it meant that I felt like I wasn't good enough, and that first step is admitting it, and then saying to God, you pour into me, help me to accept myself, and to be able to see myself as you see me. Even when I think nobody else sees me that way, help me to see myself. And it is an ongoing journey. I'm not going to sit here and say I've arrived. I'm so much better. And that's why I want to help other people get better. But
it's a journey. I just recorded a video for my online school yesterday about what we call Iwaper, which is the journey to the self. And this is similar to the concept of Iwapele in the Yoruba tradition, where it is about developing gentle character, but in truth it is really more about the journey and understanding that in order to hone fine characteristics, that means that you've got to really be on your journey and embrace every part of it, all the bumps, scrapes, all of the triumphs. But if you are not in a place of knowing what triumph is, okay, you can end up going to all kinds of extremes to experience what you think is triumph or victory. And I know that now when I was in school, that's when I really started experiencing some low esteem. I mean, I thought everything was wise and wonderful in my world until I got sent to school with all these white kids who didn't appreciate me and would call me the N-word in kindergarten, okay? And with white teachers who also were telling me horrible things and speaking limitation to me. I thought I was getting punished every day by going to school. I didn't understand. And in addition to that, I was in the advanced placement classes, okay? You know, the special groups. So that kind of singled me out. You would think it would be a good thing, but all it did was foster a lot more resentment in many of the white parents whose children I went to school with. And also there were teachers who resented my being there. And so I did the perfunctory thing of, you know, getting the good grades and this kind of a thing. But I never felt good. I never felt good. And so in high school, actually when I was 12, I started doing yoga, and that began the process of really looking for what made me feel good and overcoming all the negativity that was spoken into me. But see, along the way, I learned to be a people pleaser. I learned to just say whatever to get along, okay, to get by. And in a lot of ways, I became very strong, but I also became a doormat. That set me up for a series of relationships where I just put up with whatever because I had a really high threshold for other people's drama, and you know, you just calmly dealing with it, but in the meantime, inside you feel like you're dying. So that became a whole other persona. This person who had it all together, but inside felt deprived, angry, and so breaking out of that whole shell. Actually, in performing, also that's where I found who I was. You know, it wasn't the other way around where I put on a persona. But I do have to say, I am a rape survivor and also a trained dancer. And, you know, there's a whole thing about your body and body image, okay? And so I was talking before about how I had OCD. The other thing was where I didn't feel like I had control of my body. So I became anorexic, you know, so there was the whole deprivation thing so that I could be in control of this, okay? I controlled what went into my mouth and the look and all of that, and took a lot of therapy. But as an artist, especially as a dancer, where everything is all about body line and all of that, when I got older, I started taking belly dance classes, right? It was very difficult for me because I had so disconnected from my body, even as a dancer, okay, as a career dancer, choreographer and all of that. It wasn't until some years later when I came to a new place in my life of really owning all of who I am that the belly dance finally clicked. But the other side of that is, one reason that I felt so comfortable was because I could be as sensual as I wanted to be on stage, but the audience was out there, and I was up here. There was a safe barrier, you know? So, okay, so listen, how are we doing? Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So we're going to bring on Elegance Champagne, and after Elegance, and I've been talking and the video has not even been on. And so, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I know that your story is just so inspiring to me. The first time that we really had a conversation, I was like, wow, this woman has overcome so much and is such an amazing example to everyone. And so, thank you. Thank you so much. And look forward to hearing you after Elegance Champagne.
Yes.
All right. Okay. much love, many blessings to everybody. Let's bring on Elegance Champagne.
Yeah. So this is the mic that's gonna be used, right?
That's the mic that's on right now.
Okay.
Do you want to keep this here, this table?
Yeah, that can. Yeah, that can actually stay there.
Yes. Everybody, thank you for tuning in and watching today. We're going to have a number of speakers come up for Transformation Tag Team Tuesday. Did I say that right? Okay, so make sure you share. And right now, Elegance is getting ready to speak with you. He has his program ready. And thank you for watching.
Hey, blessings everyone. I am Elegance Champagne, founder of Abstract Thoughts of a Transition Mind, and VP with Minds Up with my beautiful queen, Takiyah Diamond. And also today's Tuesday, so just want to give a shout out to the Team Transformational Tuesday with Queen Mother. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Vanessa, for just giving us this opportunity as well for this platform. So guys, I know you guys may have been watching for the Tag Team Transformational Tuesday, and I know you guys have been kind of like keeping up to date what's going on. So this is a little something new that we decided to basically start trying out. And right now, I'm just going to jump into it. The topic that I picked today was the elemental structure to relationships, the elemental keys in the structures to relationships. And the reason why I chose that is because one thing about abstract thoughts is it's really taking concepts and ideas of different things that we may come across every day in life, and we actually show the similarities and how it's actually relevant and how it relates to us as a people to help us develop a better sense of character, and then also developing other things and establishments that is known to us basically here on Earth. So one of the main things that I love speaking about are about elements. And for those of you who may not be familiar with elements, the elements I'm speaking of is every particular element, such as the elements from the periodic table of elements, such as hydrogen, oxygen, and so forth. And then you also have the elements such as like the seasonal elements or natural elements like earth, wind, fire, air, and so forth. But now there's also another take when it comes to relationships. When we start speaking about relationships and the nature of structures for relationships. What do I mean by that? Speaking of an atom, just picture an atom. For those of you who may understand how an atom is constructed of, it's consisted of three parts, which is a proton, neutron, and electron. Those three components is what actually creates that one atom, that whole unit that's right there. But one thing I've noticed is the atom itself and the science, it actually is showing us how to have a relationship, whether we're around positive people, neutral people, or even negative people. That's a representation of the proton, neutron, and electron. Proton represents the positive charge. The neutron represents a neutral state. And then the electron represents an electrical charge, which is the negative aspect of that. But it's amazing how when we look at the structure of it, the center of the atom is actually, you have the nucleus that's right there. But right there in the center, you also have the protons, which is the positive charge, which to me, it represents how God has constructed everything in the universe with order and structure. And when you look at the proton and you look at the nucleus inside of the atom, it shows that those that is closest to us should be those positive people. It should be the positive charge that should be closest to our hearts, to our center. And then also you have the valence shell, which is an invisible layer, so to speak, that allows the electrons to basically stay at bay, where it doesn't interfere with the positive charge, or in other words, the positivity that is in our heart, but it keeps it at bay just for us to be able to observe it, because it goes over and around under. So it's just there to signify that negative things, yes, they do exist. However, it's not for us to take ownership of it or take it as a whole as though that is actually us. It's there for us to acknowledge for what it is, and at the same time, it's for us to see what it is we can learn from that. Now, excuse me. You can't. You can't interrupt it. Sorry for the interruption, everyone. So once again, as I was speaking back to with the neutron, that right there is also in the center, which it represents a neutral state. In other words, that represents people in our lives that maintain a neutral character, a neutral attitude, where it's not the worst, but it's not the best, but they also give you a sense of reality. Like, this is what it is. This is where you can go if you don't do this. This is where you can go if you do this. Is there as a representation as a person, basically that ear for you. So where if you need to vent or if you just need like new ideas, but to still maintain who you are without too much pressure being applied. So when I look at that, I see how all these things, there is three separate things, but they work collectively as a unit to actually create that one atom. And that one atom, when we look at a periodic table of elements, any element, element is the simple building blocks of matter, which means it's consisted of that same exact molecular structure, that same exact atom over and over and over and over. So you may start with one, for instance. We'll say like this flower, for instance. It consists of maybe just one petal, but when you actually add more petals, more and more and more, it's actually what's creating the actual flower, the structure of the flower. It's many different molecules, but they're all the same, and they're just working collectively as one to create that image that we can physically see. So that's how the atoms work. They work collectively as a relationship with one another. They learn the positive aspects of each other. They learn the neutral aspects of each other. They learn the negative aspects of each other, and they show us who we are when they work collectively. So to jump ahead, guys, everything in the universe is working in vibration. It's working as far as with movement. In other words, that's what it really means. So in relationships, it's not structured for it to just stay at one spot. It's not structured just to stay just at one vibration level. That's where you stay. You maintain who you are, you maintain at that vibration, but if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to create relationships with other people. And that's where we get the combinations, such as like compounds in the scientific aspect, where it's taking one atom that's consisted of the same exact thing, such as hydrogen we'll speak of, and then you also have oxygen. These are two different elements, these are two different atoms, but they're actually collectively now, which actually creates H2O, which is what you guys may know as water. Now, water is an essential element needed for our survival. Every living organism in existence that we know of, majority of the time, it needs that element of water in order for it to sustain itself. So that's the same way with us in life. We have to understand where are we, what type of element we are, and the relationship. But in order to do that, you have to know thyself, in other words. So you have to know if you're hydrogen. You have to know you have to know that you're human, in other words. You have to know that you're also spirit at the same time. You have to know these things in order for you to be able to know who you are as yourself, as an element, as a creation, and then bond and merge with other people to create a family, so to speak. So this is the breakdown I'll give to simplify it after that I said. As I mentioned, guys, it's abstract thoughts of a transitioned mind, many different ideas and concepts, and you bring it together collectively to show you what I'm speaking of. So here we go with a family. This is how an atom is structured, and even business, you can use this model. You have a man, you have a woman, and then once you end up creating, you have a child. Before you can understand you being a man, you have to understand yourself being a human being. Once you understand you being a human being, you have to also take in consideration that you are also a spiritual being. when you understand these two components, this brings you into creating a new establishment of life, which creates you, which is this third aspect. So when you look at that, that creates you as a human being. So understand you're a human being and a spiritual being at the same time. But now what creates you and separates you from being male and female? That's a whole nother topic with the science. But when we simplify it, you'll see, okay, what is a man known to do? The roles of a man is usually to create a form of structure, a form of protection, a form of security, just to make sure that he's able to basically maintain his territory, maintain himself, and then also to protect others that may not be able to at that moment in time. So that's a basic structure as far as for a man, especially even in a relationship where a man is known to also provide. What am I getting at by saying this? The man has to know who he is. He has to know the roles that he is supposed to fulfill before he ends up going on and taking on a woman or a female. A female, she has to understand who she is as well, which are the main roles of a female. One of the main roles of a female we also know is she has the ability to create new life. She has the ability to reproduce. But in order for her to do that, she has to learn who she is as a person, as a spiritual being as well, just as a man. This is just the human level. But now we're going into titling as far as her being a female, which separates her from being a female versus a male. So those are some of the things that separates her from being a female and a male. She has the ability to create. She's carrying eggs within her to be able to be fertilized to bring new life into this world or a new establishment. It's the same thing when we look at it where with our bodies being who we are, such as elegance. Now this is who I am after understanding me being a spiritual being and a human being as well. So when you have a family, you have male, you have female, you have man, now you have woman. Now you're going into the next characteristics, which is a structure, which creates him being a husband. What makes a husband? He has to understand the basic roles as far as a male. Now he has to understand communication on this level, such as communication of how to effectively communicate with other people, but now the opposite sex, which means now he has to know not only just himself, he has to learn the characteristics and the qualities of a female. Excuse me, I get some water if possible. Thank you very much. Excuse me, everyone. So once a male understands that, and he understands that structure and the communication aspect with merging with another person, a woman, a female, then now they begin to court with each other. They begin to exchange information with one another, then exchange ideas and characteristics. And once they end up merging, understanding each other with the characteristics, that is like, once they understand, sorry, one. So once we understand the structures and the characteristics of a man understanding his characteristics with the woman, now he can actually go into creating a family, which is the third component. So once again, to backtrack, we have male, we have female, we have human being, we have a spiritual being, and now we actually have self. And now once we get past that part, now we're going to establishing a connection, which is husband, which is wife. Now, once you have a husband and wife, these are two different structures that I mentioned. Now what comes after that? The third component of this atom, the third component of the atom as far as which creates this establishment, this family, which creates a child. Now you have three components, and this is what creates a actual family. So now you have male, female, husband, wife, and now you have child. This is a new life. And now it's up to them to be able to educate that child, to teach them who they are, teach them the insides and the out. So that's where they end up passing on their communication to create something else, which is another group. So symbolically speaking, the periodic table elements, different groups, different categories, different elements. Now this is a new element to the periodic table of elements, a new element to the establishment, a new element to the family, which is creating an establishment. Or you can use this model as well, where not only is this creating a new family, as we all know, as I mentioned, this is abstract thought, so bear with me. We're going into where now you understand the structures of a human being, yourself, and a spiritual being, a family, and now you're going to look at this model and see how these things actually have comparisons with actual business. So majority of people understand where when you first start a business, usually the least amount of people that you need is a least amount of 3 people. That allows you to get your LLC or your nonprofit, or just to be incorporated, period, just to be registered as a business. You need 3 right there to create that establishment. So why is it 3? Why are we constantly seeing this number 3? Same thing in the spiritual realm, for those of you who follow scripture or the universal structures with my belief, which is God, Jesus Christ, the Most High, consisted of 3: God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. All 3 creating what? This one being. Same thing, man consisted of a name, a spirit, a body. Okay, there we go. Consisted of 1, 3, a business. You have the head, you have the CEO, the COO, or so to speak, and you have like an assistant or so forth. Those 3 main things right there is what's creating a business. What do they have in common? Relationships, communication, establishments, knowing themselves, knowing their roles, knowing what to fulfill in order for them to be able to merge and partner with another business, another family, or anything. It's consisted and constructed of 3, and it's very stable, it's very balanced. And when you do that and you see it, you notice each and every angle. When you look at 3, we look at a triangle, it's consisted of 3 points. It's consisted of 3 bases. You have one base, you have another base, you have another base. 3. No matter which way you flip-flop or to try to make it fall, it's going to be able to stand up, just like this phone. Has 3 components for it to be able to stand up. If it falls back, it has legs to stand on. If you flip it on the other way, same thing. You flip it upside, it's going to still have structure. It still has a base. So in other words, these are the blueprints. These are elements, the simplest building blocks of matter. No matter how much you break it down, as long as you understand these 3 components, you'll be able to recreate. You'll be able to establish relationships. You'll understand each other better. You'll be able to see what roles you were supposed to play. You'll know where you need to improve in. You'll know how to be able to reach out to other people to expand and expand and expand. Because we're not put on this earth just to be by ourselves. We live interdependent lives, and it's there for us to be able to learn from each other so we can expand and just help out humanity, spirituality, the spiritual realm as well, and even business. So guys, I'm not going to keep you long. I know it's kind of like all over the place, like hopping from here, here, and here, and here, but that's how it is in the universe. Thing is so big, it's so vast, but we have to be able to pick a focal point. We have to pick a focus point to where we can understand. Where does this fit in? Where can this be applied? What can we learn? What does science have to do with relationships? What does science have to do with spirituality? What do these chromosomes, what does any of this have to do with anything that I'm talking about? It's showing structure. It's showing relationship. It's showing communication. It's showing you new establishments. It's showing you the basics for you to be able to go on and just expand. So guys, I'm just going to leave it at that. Just definitely look forward to next week, or following week, when we are doing this again. Once again, I'm Elegant Champagne, founder of Abstract Thoughts of a Transitioned Mind, VP with Minds Up with my beautiful queen Takiyah Diamond, and also part of a phenomenal tag team, transformational team by Queen Mother and Maku. So guys, thank you very much and have a blessed one.
Again, thank you for watching Transformation Tag Team Tuesday. Next up, we have Takiyah Diamond. She's going to talk to you guys. And she has her program ready. Thank you for watching.